Hey, I am John Barker, and welcome back to another episode of Here to Record Show and Tell. I want to answer a question I get through a few different channels, which is basically how to get a good quality version of a presenter's laptop during a conference or an event of some sort. Now, there are a few different ways of doing this depending on your setup. There's a few really good ways and really clean ways to do it, and a few ways that are a bit more hassle and need a bit more editing, but your personal setup might differ, so I wanted to cover a few different ways. At a typical conference, I have this little fake setup here, but basically, typical conference, you have your laptop, and then you have a HDMI cable of some sort, or mini display, or whatever, and that goes into the projector. And this little screen here is playing the part of the projector for today, which is fine, but it's kind of a lockdown setup, so if this is the case, if you show up somewhere and this is the case, you may have to record the projection screen on one of your cameras, which is never ideal. So the main thing I bring, and my main go-to method, is basically to just jump in the middle of this HDMI cable and just cut it in half almost. Now, I don't really cut it in half, but what I do use is a Hdmi Splitter. And this is a 1-to-2 splitter. So instead of the signal coming out of the presenter's laptop and straight into the projector, I would instead take it out of the presenter's laptop, just change my cables around here, and then put it into a splitter. Now, what that means is the venue is uninterrupted, and what you can simply do is take one of the HDMI outs, of course, pop that into the projector. Remember, this is the projector for the purposes of this video. And you have a nice clean feed from the laptop through the splitter to the projector. I just hit a cable there and it went off, but there you go. So that's working great. That means that the venue won't be annoyed that you came along and you split their signal and you didn't mess up their cables and all that stuff. You just basically got in the way of their cable and just took your own feed from it. So the great thing about this is that you have another HDMI cable and you come along into your splitter, and on the other output you plug in your own cable, and then this can go wherever you want it to go. In my case, it sometimes goes into one of these little live gamer portable recorders. So in this case I can record straight to SD card. I just plug in the HDMI, and then that gives me a clean feed for whatever the projector's seeing. So basically anything that's on this screen here, it just went blank, that was good timing because I unplugged that, but anything that's on this screen here will be on my little gamer portable, and I'll just get a nice feed from the projection screen. So that's one of the best ways to do it if you want to edit it all later. But what I tend to do really actually is take that feed output number 2 from the splitter, and I'll plug that into my switcher. So if you have an ATEM switcher, or maybe you run everything into your laptop and use Wirecast, or maybe you have maybe like a Roland or a TriCaster, whatever you happen to have, you can take that and plug it in, and so long as everything is the right sort of resolution and frame rate, and you don't have any issues there, then you'll have a nice clean feed from the projector, and anything that the projector sees, anything the audience sees, you'll also see it on that feed. So the HDMI cable is the best way to do it, getting between the laptop and the projector, and not interrupting that feed, but just taking a feed from it, and that's the best way to do it really. The pros on that obviously is that you get a really good clean version, so you'll get a nice HD version, unlike whenever you record the projection screen with your laptop. It can be fuzzy, it can be overexposed, it can be underexposed, it can be from a weird angle. In this case, you get a solid, clean feed. You can use it to do picture-in-picture, you can do it a full screen, but you just get a much more versatile, good quality version of the feed from the laptop. Downsides on this case would be that you have to run cables from the two-way splitter box all the way back to wherever you are. If you're in the back of the room, that can be a problem. You could have to run a long cable, or you can check out the Ethernet extender option that we've covered before in the past, which lets you take a HDMI connection and turn it into a Cat 6 connection, and then on the other side turn it back into HDMI again. That could get you to the back of a room. Or you could try the HDMI to SDI converters. We talked about the mini ones before. So basically you take HDMI, turn that into SDI, and then maybe you can plug that SDI straight into your hardware switcher, or maybe you have to turn back into HDMI. But either way, those are better options than running a long HDMI cable, because that can often break. So that could be one of the downsides to using the HDMI option. The other thing is that you may need to remember to bring some extra cables and sometimes extra dongles. Often venues will have laptop dongles for all sorts of different variations, but if you want to get in the way of their equipment, then you can't assume that they definitely have HDMI or they definitely have what you need. So it's good to bring HDMI to mini DisplayPort, HDMI to maybe DVI or VGA, hopefully not, but you might be covered just bringing HDMI and at least DisplayPort, because I've found that at most places, if they don't use HDMI, they'll use mini DisplayPort. So good things to have with you. So that's kind of like the key main best option, is just get between the laptops, the presenter's laptop and the projection system. Get between it, don't interrupt it, just take a feed from it, and you should be pretty good to go. You can record it to some sort of recorder and edit it later, or you can get a live feed and do live editing with that. Now, if the HDMI cable method is not quite for you, maybe the room's too big, maybe that just doesn't work out. Sometimes there's other options, like if you're using Wirecast as your main switcher and live streamer, you can install a program called Telestream Desktop Presenter, which is a piece of software free application that you install on a PC or a Mac. If it shares the same internet connection as your computer, then you can let Wirecast talk to this desktop presenter, and it can take a feed from a desktop presenter's laptop and bring it back into your Wirecast, which is a pretty good way to do it. It doesn't mean you need any cables, just as long as you're on the same Wi-Fi, then you can get a feed from wherever it's installed. The pros on it, it's free, it's wire free as well, but the cons are definitely that you have to get access to the laptop. You will need time to install this piece of software before the event or before the talk starts. So will you have time to get in there, get access to the computer, install something? Are they the admin of that computer? Maybe not, maybe you can't install something. But if you can do that, and if you are using Wirecast, and other services have their own versions of it too, but if you are using Wirecast, then this could be the best way to do it, especially whenever it's just a simple presentation with a few slides, and you don't want to run a cable, or you can't run a cable, then it could definitely be an option for you. If the HDMI stuff doesn't work out for you, if you're not using Wirecast or whatever service you're using doesn't quite have an app that you can install on other devices, then you may come down to the last option that I would choose, which would be just to record on the laptop itself. Now, there could be a whole host of issues with this, but open up QuickTime on a Mac or an equivalent on the PC and just do a screen recording. You need to get in there before they start their presentation, press start, and you need to press stop at the end of it, and you need to make sure you take that file from them for editing later, but that might be the best way to do it. I know for meetups and small events, it works pretty well. For conferences, it's a little bit harder because it's often a bigger room and there's a lot more stuff going on, but for small events, the pace is a little bit slower and you're able to slip in, start a recording, and then and get that recording back at the end. Often in conferences, people come up and they talk and then they just disappear and you might never see that footage again. So that is definitely an option. The pros are pretty obvious. You can get a really good clean quality recording of their screen. Often things like QuickTime, they just do an amazing quality recording of the screen and you'll get all the information you need there. But in terms of the cons is that you really need to get access to their computer. You need to make sure that either they remember to press record, which I'm sure they won't, they've got enough stuff on their head, so you need to go there and you need to press record, and you also need to press stop, and you need to make sure you take the recording with you. If they've got no space on their laptop, maybe things will start becoming an issue for them as well. So it really is the end solution, but it certainly is a solution if you have to do that. So hopefully you found that helpful. Maybe you've got other ways that you like to capture the screen of a presenter. Like I said, I personally find this method to be the best, HDMI Splitter, because it just sits between the laptop and the projector, and you get exactly what you expect to get, which is the signal that's going to be on the projector. So I think this is the best way to do it. Hardwired, no wireless fuss, no latency with wireless, no issues there. Just a good old cable that you know you're getting. Hopefully you found that useful. Like I said, if you have any other ways, let me know in the comments, something I might have missed. And I'll see you in the next episode of Here to Record's Show and Tell. Bye bye.